You're most welcome to our free online school, SkillBridge Institute. This time around, we'll be discussing about project charter development. So we need to understand that what is a project charter? So a project charter, it is a foundational document that answers the following key questions. Number one, why is a project being done? So this particular document needs to answer to say that why are you doing that particular project? Why are you giving water project to people of a particular community? Another thing is that what do the project deliver? What do the project give out by the end of the day? The other thing is that who is involved in the project? Who are those particular key members, key stakeholders in that particular project? Another one is that it provides clarity and aligns stakeholders on goals, scope, as well as responsibilities. So by the end of the day, everybody is aligned on the goals of a project, is aligned on the tasks which are supposed to be done in a project, and people understands their responsibilities in a particular project. For example, when you're trying to develop a mobile app, you need to understand that your project charter, your document, is supposed to answer all those particular questions. Why is a project charter important? Number one, it defines purpose. So it explains why your project exists. And at the same time, it supports the organizational goal, the goal that you have got by the end of the day, which you want to achieve. Another one, it clarifies the law. So at this particular moment, it defines the key roles, the responsibilities, as well as decision makers. So it defines all those particular things, the roles which are supposed to be played, the responsibilities which the stakeholders are supposed to play, as well as those people who are supposed to make decisions for a project. Another one, it secures approval. So we need to understand that when you write your project charter document, at the bottom, there is a space where stakeholders are supposed to sign. So those signatures, they act as agreements between those stakeholders. Prevents miscommunication. So because of those particular key details which are there in your project charter, everybody understands what is supposed to be done. So as a result, there is that good communication. Let's talk about key components of a project charter. Number one, it is supposed to have got a title. So on top of your document, you're supposed to have got a clear and concise name. For example, customer feedback app development. Another one, you're supposed to have got a purpose and objectives. That is, you need to have why is the project being done and its goals. So you need to well outline why are you doing your project. Another one, you need to have got scope. So on this one, you are trying to talk about the deliverables, what will be delivered by the end of the project. And you are also talking about what will be excluded, what will be included in your project, and what will be excluded in your project. That is where you are talking when you're talking of scope. Another one, you're talking about key stakeholders. So it talks about those particular key members of your project. At the same time, it talks about deadlines when your project, when will your project start, and when will your project finish. It also talks about budget or funding for your project. Then it talks about risks and assumptions. It talks about those particular risks which can cause harm or delays or even failure to your project. Then there is an approval section where stakeholders must sign. Here is an example of a project charter. This is how you can write a project charter as a project manager. So at first, there is a project name here. So for example, our friends had this particular project and the name was IVR project. So this was a project where they were trying to develop a system which was supposed to be answering calls from various clients. So the name of the sponsor was dev sponsor. Here you are supposed to have got the name of the manager. For example, Aris Michael. Here you're supposed to have got the date when it is starting, and here you're supposed to have a date when you are finishing everything. Then here you need to have got a project description. So for our friends, it was to introduce a new automated telephone system, ensure all calls get answered. So they were trying to develop this particular automated system to ensure that each and every call is answered to. The scope, this one was trying to talk about what will be included and what will be excluded in a project. So, for example, our friends had this one. IVR system will be introduced to assist the sales team to be taking orders and also to ensure that no orders are missed. The system is only to help the sales team at this stage. Other teams such as supports are out of this scope. So here we can see that their scope was talking about much about the sales team, but everybody who was not in the sales team was not supposed to use this particular app. From there, you also need to write the business case. Business case, you are simply talking about why are you doing your project. So for our friends, this was their business case. Number one was to increase orders per sales team members by 20% from current levels. That was for our friends. Another one was to reduce unhandled calls to 0%. The other reason was to increase customer satisfaction by 10%. So these were their business case. But if you're writing your project charter, you also need to have got your business case. Another one is constraints. So on this one, you are trying to focus on time, budget, scope, as well as quality. So for example, our friend's time was 6 months. Budget was to include developers who were 4 as well as 1 sales team representative. From there, the scope for the whole project. So the whole scope, the description was to be later described. So that is it here. It was supposed to be later described. So they were supposed, in terms of quality, they are supposed to prioritize budget and time over quality. That was for their project. But according to your project, you also describe what you want by the end of the day. From there are some deliverables. So for example, for our friend's project, the deliverables was an IV system to assist the sales team. Then another one was training for the sales team. The other one was support during the first operation month of the system. So those were the deliverables for their project. Benefits. On benefits, they were focusing much on key performance indicators. So on key performance indicators, number one, they were focusing on orders for sales person. So orders for sales person at that particular moment, baseline, at that particular moment it was 20, but their goal was to reach 40. And 100 calls at that particular moment was 11, but they wanted to reach 0. Customer satisfaction at that particular moment was 17, but they wanted to reach 27. The steering team, that was the team members who will be doing that particular project. There was the CEO, the finance director, as well as the sales director. Then they also had a project team. The project team, they were sales representative, as well as the 4 developers who were to be described later. Then there were some key stakeholders. So key stakeholders, the names are supposed to be placed here, as well as the success criteria for those stakeholders were supposed to be placed there. Then your project is also supposed to talk about the risks. So for example, our friends had this particular risk. No team members have any previous experience in terms of IVR system. So you can see that our friends at this particular risk to say that yes, we're developing this system, but no team member has got this experience. So that was likely a likely risk for that particular project. Let's talk about steps and tips for developing a project charter. Number one, you need to consult stakeholders. So you need to consult the stakeholders to discuss about the purpose, goals, and as well as the requirements for a particular project. From there, you need to draft a charter. So there you need to draft a charter where you are including all the key components which I have just mentioned about. From there, you need to review and refine. This is where you are now trying to share the draft so that people can give you feedback. From there, you need to get approval, where signatures are supposed to be placed at the bottom of your project charter. Tips: you need to keep it clear. So you need to keep it clear, and you need to avoid jargons. You should make sure that your project charter is well understood by every team member. Don't use jargons, those words which cannot be easily understood. You need to focus on your objectives and scope. Another one, you need to align content with the stakeholders. So make sure that the content which you have written, the stakeholders you are well in line with what they want. Another one, you need to use a template for efficiency. So you can use a template. For example, when I was giving you an example of a project charter, that is a template. Right. So the other tip we need to understand is that you need to use a template for efficiency. So you can be using a template which is a reference from a past project. So that particular template can give you what you are supposed to do in your project charter. So that is what we need to understand. The other thing that we need to know is that whenever you're writing a project charter, you can use Microsoft Word, or you can even use Microsoft Excel, so that you can write a very good project charter. Thank you very, very much.